Yo, what up? Welcome back to another video, and today I have something mildly interesting, but also not really because of all the faults it has. Today we're going to be installing a Windows 98 2nd Edition on Intel Skylake. In particular, this is a Intel Core i3 6100 machine that was previously featured in the GTA 5 on Windows XP video. And on the inside, which we'll switch the camera to looking into one moment. Alright, so here's the inside of the computer. As you can see, or I guess not see, I have replaced the hard drive with a small 80GB Mac store. And I've taken the GeForce 6800 and the Sound Blaster Live out of the Core 2 Quad machine and put them in here. I've also added a PCIe USB controller because the onboard USB ports didn't work, and I don't know how to fix that. I would have also added a network card if I had another PCI slot, because I couldn't get the DOS drivers to work on this at all in Windows 98, so... But I'm out of PCI slots, and I don't have any money to get the PCI adapters needed. But it's still an interesting procedure of forcing Windows 98 onto this infinitely to-do hardware, because, like, you got a ton of RAM to worry about, a really fast processor. It's an interesting experience that took me like a couple of days to figure out. So I'm just gonna make a quick video of showing the installation process. And yeah, I can't really put any games on here. I mean, I could, but they'd probably perform as well as they did on the Core 2 Quad system because we have the same graphics card, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference. And I would test Minecraft, but like I said, the networking doesn't work, so that makes it harder to do. But I'm gonna go put this back together, plug it in, and we'll get started on showing how you actually, or how I forced Windows 98 to install on this old hardware. So we'll be right back. Alright, so now we're in front of the computer, and for this I have prepared a CD. It has a whole bunch of stuff on it for installing Windows 98 on modern hardware. So let's get started. We will put the disk into the drive. If the drive will open, that would be nice. You'll have to excuse the brightness on this monitor. It's a little crappy, but it gets the job done. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna pick a tappy. Now, I have like basically all of the fancy crap disabled in the BIOS because a lot of it was causing problems. So, alright, I kind of screwed up this disk, but the one thing I have to do first is quickly load the CD-ROM driver. And now, as you can see, we have the CD-ROM drive running, and that's because I used Rudolph R. Lowe's AHCI optical driver, which is really nice. It works with generic motherboards with AHCI mode turned on, and just let you use it. So next thing we gotta do is format our hard drive. I have already created a 9GB partition. I swapped out the drive. Originally there was a terabyte drive in here, but then I changed it for that 80GB drive because the terabyte drive would take way too long to format. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go to C, and we're gonna make a couple of directories. So once we've made the directories, we can switch back to the A drive and switch to DOS. And from DOS, we need to copy himem.sys to C/DOS. You can put himem.sys wherever you want, but I'm just gonna put it in DOS for completeness sake. Then we switch to our D drive. And in here, there's a couple other things we need. First, if we go to WinDRV, we have this AHCI folder. So we're gonna make MD AHCI, and then switch back to D, CD AHCI, copy, star, C, floppy AHCI. This is the Windows 98 native AHCI hard drive driver. So we can access, or not hard drive driver, just SATA controller driver, so we can access the optical drive and the hard drive once we get Windows 98 installed. The other thing we need is NUSB 33E, so copy NUSB 33E.exe C floppy. So that is a package of drivers that contains USB 2.0 drivers and USB flash drive drivers, which we will use later. And then the last thing we're going to copy is I have a Windows 98 installer here, C/i386. So this is going to copy all of the Windows 98 setup files to the hard drive. So this is going to take a second, even though we're on native AHCI. So we're just going to sit here and wait. Alright, so we have Windows 98 copied to the hard drive. Now there's two other things we need to do. We're going to run sysc to copy the boot sector to the hard drive, then edit cconfig.sys. This is the most important part. The himem.sys won't work by default, and I've tried other memory managers like himemx and xmgr. None of them work. Then I found this other guy's YouTube video on how to make it work, and basically you just do DOS himem.sys with Windows 98's himem.sys. I don't know if you could see that. Let me see. Hello? I'll just have to hope that's legible enough. But the most important flags is you do /M:1, and then /V is optional, I think, but that's just for like verbose mode. Then you can save and exit. Then take the disk out. Okay, got the disk out. Here's the disk. Then you just reboot. What? There was an unrecognized command. What did I do? Echo config.sys. No. Wait. Type config.sys. Device. Oh. I see what I did. Okay, I'm gonna go fix that. We'll be right back. Okay, so if you didn't typo the himem.sys entry in config.sys, you should get something like this. If it looks like this, then himem is working. This means you don't have to use a memory limiter, or, well, you'll see what I mean later in terms of limiting memory for Windows 98, but himem.sys will work now, so that's good. Now we can just run the setup, which is setup is skips to disk check, and then the video that I got the himem trick from said to add -pi. I don't know if that's strictly necessary, but I always do it. So the Windows 98 setup will just proceed like normal, so we'll go skip through that part. We'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so then what always happens is it'll get stuck on this insufficient memory to initialize Windows. So to fix that, I have a utility on the disk, so we're going to put the disk back in, and then hit Ctrl-Alt-Delete to reboot and boot from the CD. Okay, so if you look in this DOS util folder, we have Arlo's patchmem, which is the important bit to fix this. Now, if you do updates and stuff, you might need some of these flags, but since I'm not going to bother to be doing updates, since this install isn't permanent due to the non-working network adapter, we're just going to run it normally. And there we go, patchmem is now installed. There is one other thing I'm going to do, which is, if we go to WinDRV, in here I have the USB 2.0 driver part of that NUSB package. So we can just slipstream it into our Windows install by copying all the sys files, or by copying these three sys files to C Windows System32 drivers. That's not what I wanted to do, but that won't hurt anything. And then we copy the INF file to C Windows INF. Now these will be slipstreamed into the installation process and will get detected and installed during the actual installation process. Now we could take the disk out again. Disk is out. We don't really need to take the disk out, just this thing is set to boot the disk by default, so I take it out for good measure. Anyway, now we can reboot and let Windows finish the installation. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, one hiccup that this install frequently suffers from is inability to properly shut down or restart. So what I usually do to fix that is I take a screwdriver, and this case has a reset button, so I just poke it with the screwdriver. Once it's hung at the screen for like a minute or so, and then it's usually fine. And as you can see, it's fine. One other issue I should note is if you're trying to use the built-in modern USB with a USB mouse, your mouse might go crazy. I just got around that problem by, like I said, putting in a PCIe USB card, because the onboard USB wouldn't work in Windows 98 anyway, so yeah. Anyway, now if I could just carefully grab the mouse, you could see we are installed on a genuine Intel blah 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 blah, words that have no meaning. I think DX diag will actually tell us our processor. Yep, Intel Core i3 6100. Now the next step that we're going to do is we're going to install the drivers. And if you've seen the previous video of Windows 98 on a Core 2 quad, it's pretty much the same deal, because we have all the same hardware. We have the same video card and the same sound card. So I'm just going to run through that really quick, and yeah. Alright, now that we have the AHCI drivers installed, you can see that we have the CD drive. So now I can finish up the job by copying the rest of everything else we need off the disk directly. So, let me go do that. Alright, we have all the drivers installed. You can tell because we have good color depth. The last thing I'm going to do is quickly update system.cpl, which is in here. Sharing violation. Well, that's annoying, but we can just use dx.ia to finish proving my point here. So if we go to dx.ia, you can see we still, let me zoom in real fast. You can see we have the Core i3 6100. If we go to our display adapter, we have our GeForce 6800, all the stuff. If we go here, you can see we are running in high color. We can crank the resolution. We can even run it 32-bit color, but I'm not going to do that. It's not worth it. And the audio works. Let me go play a file from like C Windows Media or something. C Windows Media. Where's Passport? There it is. As you can hear, the audio works fine. But yeah, that's about it for this video. Sorry it was a bit quick. I got kind of demotivated on this project because I was going to hype it up to be the new fastest Windows 98 machine I have, but honestly, I'm just going to put it back in Core 2 Quad, because if I can't get networking working, what's kind of the point? So, thanks for watching. Hope you have a good rest of your day. I'll catch you in the next video. See you later.